Welcome back. So today I want to do a short recap of the stream from yesterday, and then at the very end I'm going to actually show some results that we didn't compute on the stream. Actually, we wrote all the code and it didn't finish because it took a while longer than the stream allows for, but then I'll show the results here on the video, and then I'm actually going to post that to the mailing list as well. So let's start with a recap of the recap. So we had last week we had gone over what the project is, which is to check the impact of small indels mutations on a genome by trying to estimate the rate of apparent pseudogenes. So these are things that look like pseudogenes, but they're not real pseudogenes. That we're calling them apparent pseudogenes because they are not actually in the genome. But if you have a small mutation, you can introduce an early stop, and that appears to be a pseudogene. So we discussed a few ideas around this, and we said the first thing we're going to do is we will be using simulation. So we'll just get the genome. Let's start with Coli K12, very good genome, very widely studied bug, and we will now in silico add mutations to make this, and see what happens. And so we said we wanted to see what happens, what CheckM2 reports for its completeness, and we wanted to see what other metrics. So and on one of them we said would be that genes, we expect to see that genes become a bit shorter as a result. And so we had gotten the genome for K12. So this we did last week. So where we got the genome for this bug. Here it is, find genomes, and then yesterday I went over and we wrote this code in the simulate file that's going to do a couple of things. So let's actually start from the middle here, and so this function that we wrote, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So it takes a sequence as a string and it's going to mutate it. And this is a very, very simplistic model, but for now it's going to have to do. So it's simplistic both from the biological point of view, that this is a very simplistic view of mutations. It's also a very simplistic code in that it's horrendously inefficient, but for now it will do. I think sometimes it's just good to have these things in place. It's going to be very easy to later, just change this one function or this couple of functions and make it a little bit faster or a little bit more intelligent, or add more. Once we have this framework to do these things will become easier. All right, but here, very simple. So it takes a sequence, chooses a position at random, and then there's 3 possible operations. So 40% chance it inserts a random nucleotide, with another 40% of probability it just deletes that nucleotide, or it replaces it with a different nucleotide. So, all right, and then we wrote this function that that basically does n mutations, and we make the random seed depend actually on the sequence itself. So here we take the first 1000 nucleotides of the sequence, and we run mutate1 n times, and that's it. So based on that, we created this other function called create mutated file that takes a sequence and then writes it as a JZip. This read sequence, a very simple function to read a sequence from a FASTA file, and then we can see. So we're going to create, and this is what changed, and it's changed a little bit from the stream, but I'll get to that in a second. So we're going to iterate over number of mutations from 0 to 50,000 by increments of 50, and we're going to create this mutated file, and then we're just going to call prodigal for each one, and all we care about is the number and the size of the genes. So eventually we will want to run CheckM2 as well. So on the stream also showed and how to get the and I put this in the notes, how to get checkm2. So we did this, we installed checkm2, we downloaded the database, we ran the checks, and so that all worked. But as that took a little bit of time, as I was running in the background, I started working on the code for the simpler thing, which is just counting the size of the genes, and we finished it. So yeah, so this here just counts, calls prodigal, a out, and just basically a little bit of sort of gluing things together, because it's calling zcat to expand the input file and then passing it to prodigal, and then parsing the output file and getting the gene sizes in nucleotides. Right. So what does the result look like? And so this is where, so I left the stream. We had written this code, except that at the time on stream I wrote that we would try from 0 to 1,000 mutations. Then later I decided to expand this from 0 to 50,000, and then left it running. And so it took a little bit of time, but in the meanwhile everything has run. So you can see Jug status, so has created 1,000 mutated files, created 1,000, run 1,000 prodigal gene sizes, and so we can use Jug shell to look at the code. So I'm going to use plotlib. So we have number of mutes. So this is the number of mutations and average gene size. So unfortunately here, everything's already in the history. But so average gene size. So it's NumPy array, where I'm going to iterate over all the gene size arrays and just compute the mean. And okay, I forgot to import NumPy. Gene size. You can see it goes down, but okay. I think here's an S. It's called the variable. Yeah, so you can see how the average gene size, it starts at, the average gene size for 0 mutation. So this is just the original genome, it's 942, and then it goes down very dramatically, and by 50,000 mutations, this is basically just random noise. Actually, that would also be an interesting thing to do. Would be to just generate random noise and see what's the average gene size. So if we generate, yeah, let's do that next time. That's also very quick, and we'll just see what that brings about. Right. The other thing we could see is just count the number of genes. So the number of genes, so you can see the number of genes starts at about 4,000, which is the right value, and then it just grows and grows and grows, and then here it seems to sort of converge on 10,000 genes. So here we have a lot of noise. Right. So this plot of the average gene size, this was one of the initial plots we had in the when we were looking at our genomes, where we were comparing here's Anna's genomes, where we're comparing the versions of the genome that has only nanopore reads versus the polished versions. Actually first internally polished with nanopore reads and then externally polished with Illumina. We saw that the average gene size was growing with higher quality genomes, and I think this is great, but obviously this won't work across genomes, in the sense that it won't work. So some taxa just have larger genomes. That's just what it. Some taxa just have larger genes. That just functionally, some taxa will have more bigger genes. That's just what. And so if we're comparing across taxa and not different versions of the same genome, I think this won't work. And this is why the real plot we're looking for is the one that comes from CheckM or CheckM2, and that we will do next week. But in the meanwhile, this is a pretty decent. Do we have Seaborn? No, let's. Yeah, we don't have Seaborn to make this look a bit nicer. But yeah, this is the initial plot that to me already shows that we're onto something here. It's also interesting to see if even very early. So even if I look just at the beginning, yeah, just at the beginning, right? This is 2,000 mutations here. 2,000 mutations in a genome with 4 million base pairs. This is a very low rate of errors. But still, with a very low rate of errors, we already have a huge impact in the size of genes. So even 400 mutations, which would correspond to one in 1,000 base pairs is off. This already corresponds to a huge hit there. So I find this pretty interesting. Pretty much looking forward to seeing next week what CheckM2 looks like. So my impression is that when we do extend it to the high number of mutations, we will see a big impact. But I'm not sure that CheckM2 will start picking it up, even here at the low end where we have only a relatively small number of errors, right? Because this is still a high absolute number, but again, the genome is 4 million base pairs, so so you can definitely hide 4,000. That's 1 in 1,000 without it seeming too bad, right? So yeah, so I'll be posting also the plots in the mailing list. I'm gonna be changing the code ever so slightly to switch to this. So we had going from 1 to 1,000, and then I'm going to increase it from 1 to 50,000, just to give it a bit more range. So I'm going to commit that. I'm going to post on the mailing list. Any questions, feel free to write back. But post on the mailing list if you want to. I think that would be great to start discussion there. So with that, I'll see all of you next week, same place, same time. Talk to you soon.